All right, it's good to know that you're still with us on your darling breakfast show, Good Morning Abuja, of course, where we bring you issues as it pertains life and living generally. And one of those issues on the front burner is the demolition of structures by the FCDA. And what other better person is there to talk about this than Abubakar Sadiq Ahmed? He is a town planner and he's right here seated with me. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Good to have me.
Yes, good to have you on this show. So, you know, I mentioned what we would be talking about, the demolition of structures carried out by the FCDA. Now, the Department of Development Control, that's the FCDA, has demolished several structures said to contravene the FCT master plan. As a town planner yourself, what's your take on this? What do you think about it?
The line you underline is development control demolition. But what is of importance to note is that when you talk about demolition, what comes to the mind of people, development control, as the name implies, is actually more interested in developmental stride. But not forgetting the fact that they also checkmate enforcement of non-compliance to the developmental strides within the city center and the adjoining suburbs. When instead of this, a layman would think he's always having to face with a demolition. But if there are buildings that are not in cognizance or in line with the standards or lay down laws of the urban and regional planning law, and the developmental control being one of the units that is enshrined with development planning, building planning, that's building plans approval, also enforcement of non-compliance to it. The resultant is demolition. Of worries, I think demolitions within the city center, some are deliberate, people just being not having a proper ownership of the title documents and going to site. And some people have this myopic mind or standard of, let me build, I will benefit what I want to benefit before the demolition comes in. But whenever the heat is there, that is when people come to start talking like the life of people have been touched, properties have been wasted. Not also forgetting the fact that as you're taking from the part of the development control doing their enshrined responsibility as it is enshrined by the 1992 urban and regional planning laws to control all the buildings and anything that is developmental related to lands. Also, there are things that are of overlap from them, because you wonder why you have a building emerging from foundation to even complete building. Even some structures like the parts that was very prominent was the Guaduma, which is a Guzape parts, including one popular mall that you'll never think that he was lacking any function until he was hit. Guzape mall that is along the line, and you see it is quite pronounced, and all of a sudden you see after some time, then you ask yourself, what are the consigned officers doing when this building happened, and why was it so silent until it was hit? Aside that, what actually springs me as a native, I've always said that there is something that is more to planning that I have always said. The lack of proper administrative coherence between departmental, it's also responsible for some parts of issues. Officially, they have been embargoed to stop building at the local area council for over 6 to 7 years, which is not a good signal from an administrative line of action. Why would you stop where you know definitely the standard of living is measured through what you build, and accommodation is something else? The day you're going to do, for planners, we know that growth for the sake of growth is cancerous. Okay.
So from all you've said now, you've made us understand that there are rules, there are guidelines for any developer who wants to build or erect anything in the FCT. How comes these developers always fail to follow the guidelines that is already set?
For all that I've said, I think it's more important taking priority of ownership first, because the thing that is non-compromisable in the issue of development control is first the land use degree, assigning the ownership of, or the outright ownership and giving powers to the lineable of lands to the minister or governor of the state.
Okay.
Is the pario, is the soul of the first. Have they got these properties from a statutory standard, which is the only thing development control? Despite there are two types of ownership, whether it's statutory or it's customary. With the customary was a build-up to accommodate the issue of the land tenure system. That was the first regulatory act that makes it look like there's a system that a land should be tenured and ownership should be of standard.
Okay.
That aside, it's not the case anymore. Since the coming of the Land Use Act in Land Use Decree in 1976, and it becomes an act in 1979, then the ownership of land is the major determinant of it. Whoever is crying to be hit by demolition, the first question should be, has he got the right statutorily to own the land? That's the first question.
Okay.
And also from the part of the developers, I think they have been a bit of, they feel there's a delay. Development control take time to checkmate what you're submitting, to understand the soil bearing capacity of the place in question, the standards, how does it relate to the adjoining properties? Are they in line? Are these very submissive to the standard in the land use, the density? All of this have to be checked by development control before issuing an approval to build in accordance to what you're approving. Because even when you're building against what you're approved, it's even contravention again. But like I said, you will always know that there is a problem that has to do with the policing of about 8,000 kilometers land area of FCT.
Okay.
It's a major issue that they are short-staffed, to my conclusion, because you can't have the number of planners to service the whole of the department across board. And there is a weak correlation between where is the urban and regional planning unit, the Abuja Geographical Information System, and also the development control. There's a weak leakage between the three of them.
Okay.
And totally, to be honest, this might sound harsh, and totally absence of the local planning authority, which are the area council correlations. More than 2-3 years now, also there have also been suspension or withdrawal of the zonal land managers from the land that are correlating and serving as the representative of the urban and regional planning over those area council. So when you see those clumsy nature of some acts that the government is doing in order to authenticate the issue of ownership and to avoid land racketeering, it's also giving birth to also the overlap of allowing the porosity and openness of the development as such area councils. And at the end of the day, the only control measure of enforcement is to demolish. And when it happens, it will hit back to the native of the people, whoever are doing it. I remember when the Ido Sarki demolition happened, people went ahead to even build in estate and all that in a land. At the end of the day, they were hit. And the emotions attachment makes it look like the town planners or the FCT administration are heartless. It becomes a thing of campaign or for or against, that the people that are in question don't have human rights. But you don't blame people for not adhering to standards, because the standardization of what makes human is when he knows this is right and this is wrong. And by that time you spelt this out, and people are not ready. And I think, again, there's very, very weak sensitization on ownership of land by FCT administration and also the development control, warning people and letting them know the repercussions of having a land that is not it, or a land that you have no paper. You can't go and have an agreement written by a traditional ruler or a district head and you carry it and said, this is your...
Because I think that's what most people who live in the area councils have.
Yeah, but you can't do that, because prior to even everybody calling back the process, before they allow the customary act to be still managed and monitored by the chairman of the area council, they were signing allocations at the time.
Okay.
But when everybody came, no, let them come and have a central server. And that was why they have an introduction of Abuja Geographical System, have representatives from all of the area council in order they key in so as to sensitize
people,
make also a better proper documentations of people paper, and making sure that there are not double allocations and there are not overlap of view. And also it's important to know that the Department of Urban and Regional Planning must define where it's urban and where it's regional. Okay. Even if it means having a more directorate. Aside the urban, they have a director or regional, because the area council has to fall within the regional. If this are spelled out as functions as it's supposed to be in the urban and regional planning law, there won't be an overlap of function, and nobody's jurisdiction will be taken for granted, because now you can have a land that is Buari and somebody have a land that is Aegis in Kubwa, and the one in Buari cannot fight over the one in Aegis, even if he's a first timer.
Okay.
Yeah, all of these things were created because there are no synergies on interdepartmental synergy between the three departments in questions that have to do with the land
and
ownership.
I think that synergy is really needed.
It's needed seriously.
Because you begin a structure, like you made mention, you begin a structure and then till probably you move in or you start using it for whatever purpose, and then demolition hits hard.
Obviously, even though I knew to own a stealing property doesn't make it your own, because one day definitely the owner will come for it. And that is what development control are doing. No matter the hardship, no matter the inhuman nature of it, it has to be functional. It has to be owned based, not just trying to have a racketeering paper or just have a sheet of paper, like somebody said. I used to remember the tax force, you said you can't have a piece of akara paper and think that you have a land ownership in Abuja. What matters much is that the departments actually have to so get aligned. Understand that the human part of it is also a little bit more convincing to the general public. What they feel is the emotional attached to people house removal. But people are not even checking there. They will ask where were they, where the building was going on. The issue of more staffing should also come in, and not just staffing, and proper training of the staff, because planning also have evolved more than just the normal contemporary planning. There are a lot of planning, and I think we are the advantageous side. They should also call the department, the standard, the national associations of town planner precisely, let them have a say in disciplinary, allowing people to understand what their jurisdiction is. I think of late, the privilege we had is that the person that is the national president of the NITP now, Nigerian Institute of Town Planner, has worked his life more than 30 years in Abuja, so he knows the intrigues of all the developmental control issues. He should also be called by the administration to also involve him, even if it means consultancy, having task force, resolve issues. And as much as a matter of urgency and fact, they should call off that embargo. It makes no sense, because you can't allow people in the area council, you can't tell them not to build, and you know that you're not realistically being real in handling situation, because they will definitely build.
Need places to live. All right. Now, for us in the city of Abuja, we all know that Abuja is a beautiful city, and some places, I'm using that code now, some places are neat, and some others are not very neat, you know. So now, talking about sanitation, some people are of the opinion that the enforcement of the city sanitation personnel from the ministerial task force, or team rather, is harsh. In what do you think? What's your take? What do you think should be done?
Being privileged to be in one of the nuisance clearance committee in 2010 under the Alero-led administration in FCT, I happened to realize that FCT, if it has a weak structure of any implementations of enforcement department, it will lead to what you're saying. Because even when Modibo came after Alero, he created a monitoring and inspection unit that was to oversee, checkmate, and report issues as it is. But of late, I think the department has now turned to contract monitoring, and it's more of project concern than what it was created for.
Okay.
Enforcement are actually things that shouldn't be mild, because as the name implies, it's enforcement. The focus is just a bit drilled, because to be honest, I feel like they are more interested in task force of catching hawkers than even the cleaning of cities, which becomes the more popular thing. I think that the director should also be conscientized on the issue that there are more of overfilled waste being on overgrown, what's it called, vegetations, and also bleeding manholes. And also ignorantly, the most important thing, the security personnel are inactive in all of the manhole cover, if not 70% in FCTA. Okay. I remember the year minister was having a program on the infrastructural decay of FCT, and he was saying above 20 to 25 billion infrastructures have been bungled. And the most unfortunate thing, you see them being sold at markets like Dede and Zuba openly, and you wonder, why would you steal the government infrastructure and yet you're selling it within the core, and people are buying? These are the most open thing that, again, they should check, to checkmate, because you see, this FCT is as vulnerable as every municipality of the world. Okay. If you have not been to some, you will think that, why is FCT like this?
All right, thank you for your thoughts. I was actually carried away because you were making so much points, but you know, when on television, there's always time. In as much as we're enjoying this conversation, it's time for us to wrap it up. Thank you for your thoughts on Good Morning Abuja.
Thank you very much.
All right. We have been conversing with Abubakar Sadiq Ahmed, a town planner, and wow, he has a lot, he has said a lot. All hands need to be on deck to ensure that FCT is that beautiful city that we would all want to live in. Now, Good Morning Abuja continues after this timeout. Please stay with us.